Absolute Superman just keeps getting better and better. Son. Okay, so we are here with the ending of the fight between Superman and King Shazam. And for those of you guys who are a little behind, I'll get you caught up. Don't worry. But this literally has Superman getting pummeled. I mean, just getting the hell beat out of him. He's got his armor. He's got the hammer of steel. He's got the mace of Hawkman. A couple of folks who have joined him alongside this journey, but kind of had their asses handed to them by King Shazam nonetheless, because this dude is cracked. And that's where Superman says, I am not going to kill you, Shazam, and I don't want to hurt you. And he says, I want to help you. Even more than that, I need you to help me, right? I know that you can hear me, right? The dust of my cape is in your ears. I need you to listen, which is to say, it's a translation system, right? And that's where he says, your senses are like mine. You hear the state of the world. When you made that wish with the wizards 3,000 years ago, there were millions suffering. Now, there are billions, and I don't know if I can save them alone. I am not your enemy, Teth Adam. Please stand down. And this is Superman beating the crap out of him with the mace of Hawkman, right? Which is enough to do it. It's him getting the upper hand momentarily. And at that point, Lois Lane starts talking about a list. Now, let's kind of wind back here for a second, because this is an important thing to understand. When this fight initially broke out, Superman knew he might not make it, even going all the way back to when the fight first started. But in this particular instance, he also acknowledges he may die. I mean, keep in mind, King Shazam is stupidly overpowered. I mean, this guy humbled Superman with one shot when the two of them first met. So the fact that this guy's so powerful, Superman has to face facts here. And that's one of the cooler, grounded elements of his character. And so what ended up happening leading up to this final battle between the two is he had chimed in to Lois, right? And he had told her, look, if something happens to me, I need you and Jimmy Olsen to do something for me. Now, of course, as you can imagine, Lois is falling in love with Superman. Jimmy Olsen cares about Superman. Neither of them want anything to happen to him, and neither of them want him to entertain the idea that, like, he might be killed in this fight. But it is a truth that they have to come to terms with. And so that's why she says what Superman did was give me a list. And that's what she's talking about here when she talks about the list. She says, it was a list of names, people Superman checked in on from time to time, people all over the world. An elderly man in Botswana whose medicine Superman would deliver, a blind woman in the mountains of Peru whose garden Superman would attend to, children in Tanzania that he would bring stories and vaccines and treats from far corners of the earth, the names of stray dogs that he would feed, rivers prone to flooding that he would keep an eye on, spots in the ocean where he walked on water to pick up trash. The reality here is that in Lois Lane hearing all of this, it's almost overwhelming because no one realized how much Superman did. And honestly, we didn't realize it. All these things are for the most part off panel. And the reality here is when you focus almost exclusively on the nature of Superman in the comics, you focus on what it is that he does on a regular basis, most of the story arc has just been him losing his family, essentially experiencing the same kind of existential crisis and angstiness that Supergirl experienced at the beginning of the New 52, and then trying to find his way. One part of him being so upset and so basically destroyed by the loss of everything he cared about, it was almost kind of like a negativity bias thing, right? He was just emphasizing more all the crappy things and ignoring the great things. The Kents were able to compensate for that a little bit, but the reality is that he's been struggling the entire time. On the other hand, what this also demonstrates kind of builds on what we already suspected, and in some ways was kind of confirmed, albeit through other and indirect actions, that Superman really is trying to find the beauty in the world and trying to do great things in the world here in the absolute universe, which is devoid of so much goodness within this world. But the fact is, all this stuff that he's been doing, Lois is just like, some of this just cannot be done, right? We would have to like station a person with the old blind woman at her garden and they would just stay with her to tend to it, assuming they even knew how to tend to her garden. I don't know how frequently we could deliver medicine to an old man in Botswana. These are things that we simply just can't do, but it's less about the practical nature of it, and it's more about the recognition Superman is way more of a force for good in the world than anyone recognized. And so that's why Lois Lane says, Superman, that's a long list. Like, I don't know how you do it, and how could you possibly do all of this? And that's where Superman interrupts her and just says, just tell me that you have it. I have to know. I have to know before I do this, that someone out there knows everything I've done. That really seems to be the main goal for him, right? Making sure the world knows Superman did some good. It's not selfish and it's not cynical. It's not him being performative, right? Like waving it up in the air. Look at all the great things I've done, everybody. Yeah. Shouldn't you all be patting me on the back? No, that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is that because this world is such a tough world to be hopeful in, what Superman wants is for that to be an inspiration for other people. If one guy could do it, imagine what the entire human race could achieve. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful moment. And that's where Jimmy says, we have it, Superman, right? Between Lois and me, we'll take care of all of it. I promise. Just come back from this. Okay? Like, come back alive. And so at that point, Superman back on the offense with King Shazam, right? We're right back into it, right? Right back into the throes again. Except King Shazam's got the mace and Superman's got the hammer of steel. And the crazy thing about it is that at the end of the day, King Shazam grabbing that mace smashes the moon with it when he hits Superman and almost cracks the moon in half. And so there is this really cool moment here where you switch over to Lois for a second and everything with Talia, right? Because keep in mind, Talia being the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, right? The guy who was leading Lazarus, and really where the first real fight of this world with Superman and a villain took place. While Ra's al Ghul was ultimately defeated and then seemingly eventually destroyed, this led to Talia effectively taking his place. And so her having a personal vendetta against Lois Lane, when she's talking to Superman, Talia pops up and immediately attacks her. But in the midst of this, Talia says, it's about time you showed up, because she's not talking to Lois, she's talking to Carter. Hawkman has shown up here on the scene. Now, he doesn't have his mace. Superman has it, or at least King Shazam has it on the moon. Carter's just by himself. Now, the crazy thing about Carter Hall, keep in mind, this guy killed Green Arrow. He killed Oliver Queen, and he's basically historically an agent for the Absolute Justice League. Basically all the villains, at least the major villains in the Absolute Universe as they stand now. This guy's allegiances are questionable at best, but what really seems to have been going on with this character over the course of the Absolute Superman run, and that's what's dope about this, Superman's turning him into a good guy. It's happening grudgingly, he's dragging his feet, but it's happening nonetheless. And that's one of the dope things here, because Talia says, are you going to just float? Are you going to just float there all day like a moron, or are you ready to earn your keep? And she says, Hawkman, do you hear me? Help me kill Lois. Hawkman isn't paying any attention to her at all. He's looking at the father box, the source of King Shazam's power, and seemingly the only way to destroy him. And so at that point, you do pick up on Steel. Now, here's the thing. Yes, Steel is just kind of laying here, he's bleeding, and it's very easy to like joke about how incompetent he is. No, right? I mean, is he like the best fighter? Not at all. But John Henry Irons was dope in this story. And it's to the point that like on social media, people are like, we need more Absolute Steel. And I'm here for it, right? The reality, and one of the best things about John Henry Irons, historically speaking, in comics, is that he was always a guy that was never really as powerful as Superman, but it was never about having the same power as Superman. It was about modeling himself after what Superman stood for. When Superman saved his life in the main DC universe, falling off the construction site, right? Talking about main Steel for a second, Superman told him, right, make something of your life, right? When Steel asked him, thank you, you saved my life, how do I repay you? Superman said, do something with it, right? Like, do something great. And that's where John Henry Irons in the main DC universe did exactly that. Well, this Absolute Universe version of him is much the same way. There's no construction site. It's not Superman saving his life falling off of a building. It's simply just looking at where he is in life and realizing he could be doing more. He could be having far more of an impact. That and the fact that his wife was destroyed or killed by Lazarus, and so he has a vendetta against them. But the point is, much like Hawkman, he's joining the cause. He's becoming an ally for Superman. And so that's why he says, hey, if you can hear me up there, don't die, Superman. Somebody's got to feed this creepy dog of yours, right? Because it's basically Parasite, right? This little thing that just feeds on stuff. But that's when you switch over to King Shazam. And he says, you are not the savior who was promised. You are a child without the strength to kill. I will show you strength, boy. Strength enough to shatter your skull. And literally comes crashing down with the mace again and punches a hole through the moon. Sends fragments of this thing breaking off into space. And he immediately chases down the hammer because Superman's lost it. But of course, Superman recovers and grabs the hammer and is right back into the conflict again. And so Superman just says, right, I do not need a prophecy to tell me who I am. My parents taught me that. Tell me, King Shazam, who the hell are you? Right? Who are you really? And that's where he just says, I am he who will come like a tempest with eyes of fire and strength beyond imagining, imbued with the power of the sky itself. He who wears the dust of his home upon his back and will bring about a brave new world. It's dope. Right? It's absolutely dope, right? An age of justice. And he's saying this as he's just demolishing Superman, right? The reality here is Superman's not winning. This is not one of these fights where like Shazam is coming out with all these monologues in order to kind of keep his ego up in the face of the fact that he's getting destroyed by Superman. No. He's dominating this guy every step of the way. So much so that even Lois, in watching this fight happen from Earth, is looking up at the moon and watching the thing crack. And it's just like, Superman, please be alive up there. And so at that point, King Shazam pops up with this amazing monologue. And he says, I hear them call your name from below. These people have placed their faith in a fool and a false prophet. I will show them the one true Superman. They shall worship me as the risen deliverer, or they shall die, as died their man of steel. And in that moment, Superman snaps. And that's the reality of what's been going on. I wouldn't say pulling his punches, but he's been holding back, right? He says, what have you become? What happened to that slave boy, right? The boy who made the wish for freedom. 3,000 years locked in that sarcophagus. You've lost yourself to madness. You've become what you most hate, which is true. Right? That's really what's been happening here, right? He wanted to be free from his oppressors. So he gained power and became an oppressor. And he says, but you're right? You will have to kill me to end this. And I don't think that's who you are. And King Shazam is like, but it is though, right? Make no mistake, my friend, I will kill whoever I need to that is in my way in order to secure what I believe to be my legacy. But here's the beauty of this moment, because in effect, what it looks like is Superman led him into a trap. He led him into a trap, right? That's how it looks. That's my interpretation of it. Because what happens is that King Shazam says that slave boy is long since erased, as if he never existed. Teth Adam is no more. I am retribution made flesh. I am the wrathful God that this world deserves. I am Shazam. Bam! Just like that, literally he loses his powers, goes right back to normal because he seemingly either lost track of himself, didn't realize what he was saying, so caught up, or he didn't know or forgot. I mean, 3,000 years, you'll forget a lot of stuff. But he says, no, the magic word, what have I done? And just reverts back in to his child form. But keep in mind, he cannot breathe in space because of that. Right? When he's in his human form, he can't breathe in space the same way. He's just holding his breath as best he can. But that's where Superman shows up. He doesn't let him suffer. He doesn't let him just sit here and die. Superman says, Teth Adam, you cannot breathe. Don't worry. I will get you to safety. But in that moment, he's attacked from behind. And Superman's just like, what's happening here? And Carter Hall shows back up with his mace and the father box, right? Tossing it out there in front of King Shazam. And that's where he just says, get away from him, Superman. And Superman's response here, right? Like, what are you doing, man? Like, what in the hell are you doing? Right? You're killing him. Now, the reality is he's not. Right? He's not actually killing him. But here's the other cool thing. In this fight between Lois and Talia al Ghul, Jimmy Olsen shows up here. And I'll be honest, man, this moment is dope. Jimmy Olsen gets his moment here. And honestly, I love the way that Jason Aaron does him. That when Talia shows up here, right, she says, I will rip out your bones and skin you with them Lois Lane, the Al Ghuls will rise again. And that's where Jimmy's just like, that's enough, Talia. It's over, right? Literally pulls a gun on her, right? And she's like, you've got to be joking, right? Like, you don't have the guts to do it. And he was like, the Omega Men send their regards, and fires on her at point blank range. And it's just like, Jesus, did Jimmy Olsen kill her? Now, we do get this explanation, right? Lois says, Jimmy Olsen had quit his job at the Daily Planet shortly before putting a bullet in Talia al Ghul, directly in her left shin. We all like to believe that's where he was aiming, because he wasn't always the best shot, to be honest. But I'll be honest with you guys, man. Dude, he was doing what Thor didn't do in Infinity War. He was aiming for the head. But still, right? Lois says, last I heard, he was somewhere in Thailand, linking up with other holdovers from the Omega Men. Metropolis was not for him, he said. The city felt too small. And I get it. It turns out it was not for me either. I never even made it to my Daily Planet interview. Instead, I found a job in a place that promised to be a bit more exciting. My first story was an expose on the unsafe working conditions at Midwestern meatpacking plants. I had one hell of an inside source, because that's John Henry Irons, right? He's the one that worked in the meatpacking plant. So this is her first huge story, which honestly I think is dope. She says Talia is currently awaiting trial for the crimes of Lazarus Corp, including the murder of my father. I visit her from time to time whenever Superman is too busy. And this is a cool moment, right? Because she's effectively adopted the exact same strategy that Superman did when he was talking to Roz, which is really an amazing moment, because Lois was all about killing Talia. After Talia killed Lois's father, Lois was like, that girl's gotta die. Right? There's no way she survives this. She has to go. But the fact that Lois has adopted that mentality and in essence is now working in the same way Superman does, that's phenomenal, right? And she says, no one knows what happened to Shazam except for Superman and Hawkman. And last I heard of Hall, he was supposedly somewhere out near Venus on a bender. As for Superman, and that's when you switch back to that moment, right? That's when you jump back to that moment where King Shazam was being defeated by Carter Hall. And that's where Superman's just like, what did you do? Right? Because literally King Shazam is encased here. And he says, Teth Adam is gone. Like, what did you do to him, Carter? And Carter just says, he's gone. And so is that damn father box, right? I did what had to be done, kid. What you never would have had the balls to do. I saved your life, Superman. You're welcome. And then just leaves, right? And that's kind of the crazy thing here, because at that moment, Lois kind of chimes back in with another bit of a monologue, and she says, I haven't seen Superman since he welded the moon back together with his eyes. I didn't seem to want to talk about what had happened. Instead, he's thrown himself into his work even more than before. I worry about him, right? We all do, although there's really nothing we can do about it. Right? This is the age of the Superman, and we're just living in it. And so that's when you pick up on the end of the comic, the end of the story. And this is nuts, because you end up finding out that what's effectively happened here is that Black Adam was teleported away, right? He was literally sent away thousands of light years to a distant world. And he just asked, where did you take us? Right, you infernal box. Is this meant to be my damnation? So clearly, it's a world with oxygen, which tells us right off the bat, there's probably sentient life here. And there is. Because in that moment, in response to his statement, is this meant to be my damnation? He says, or perhaps the chance to live the life I was deprived of. And then there's like this just enormous sound off in the distance. And that's where he says, I see. Damnation it is. Just know that however far from home you've taken me, it will not be far enough. I will find my way back to Earth, back to Superman, back to reclaim what belongs to Shazam. And when I return, it will not be as a savior. Not this time. It will be as Superman's doom, because he is on a planet filled with doomsdays. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.